All right, so up to now, we are done with top-down parsing. So for the rest of the term, well, basically we got maybe about 2 or 3 more lectures. We're going to finish covering another kind of parsing called bottom-up parsing. Okay, I can tell you that this one here in some way could be a little bit trickier. It's not so intuitive, but it's also something you should know when you learn about compiler. But anyway, we'll try our best, right? Let's just go, just for today, I don't want to get to the tracing just yet. Okay, I think it's good to just have some intuition, just drawing some diagram and understand certain concept, and then we'll start tracing next time after we have gone through the solution to the exercise today, right? Let's make sure everything's done properly. Okay, let's go over just some bullet points over here. Oh, before we get to bottom-up parsing. In top-down parsing, if you remember the way we did it, right, according to the algorithm, we start with the start variable as a root node, and then we try to work towards the leaves. If you remember something like this, right? We start with the start variable, and then try to apply different rules, and then do things like that. And of course, sometimes if you don't really have to look ahead, you may have to backtrack and go back and to the previous one. That's basically what we did for top-down parsing. Bottom-up parsing is something the opposite in some way. Okay, we'll see. Oh. Leftmost derivation. And what about for bottom-up parsing? And we're going to still process the input from left to right. So this part is the same. Okay, still from left to right. And then this is the new bits that we have to be struggling a little bit. Maybe not today so much, but maybe next time. Okay? So let me read it. As terminals or a mix of terminals and variables are identified as reducible. So reducible here is really the key word to some variable A. What does that mean? I'll give you some illustration here at the abstract level. Let's say you have your scanner over here, and the scanner somehow has the symbols alpha and beta, let's say. And you have a production rule, which is A produces alpha and beta, let's say. In that case, you should be able to reduce these two into this variable A. That's a very critical step to be done by the bottom-up parsing. Of course, as we trace the code next time, it's not as easy as this, but I just want to give you some idea. Okay? Basically, you want to read the input from left to right, and then as soon as you identify some symbols that are reducible to a certain variable according to some production rule, you can do it. All right? So just to realize, this would be a production rule. Production rule. And this part over here is called reduction. Okay, so these two on the right-hand side is reduced to the left-hand side. Okay, hopefully that part's okay. Oh, sorry, wrong way. And then eventually, we may either accept if we are able to work our way. Let's say here, we got A here. And then eventually you can reduce all the way up to the start symbol. You can see that's exactly the opposite. In the case of top-down parsing, we start with the start symbol and work our way all the way down. But in the bottom-up, we try to somehow reduce the symbols as much as we can. According to the grammar, ultimately we should be able to reduce back to the start symbol. That's the opposite. All right, just remember that. Okay, or we can reject if there's no reduction once we reach the end of the input. And there's only one intuition I would like to carry forward to you just for today. And then we're going to see how the algorithm will work next time. Okay? Let me try a little bit here. Let me just, okay, you know what? Let's say so far we have reduced A up to here. Okay? Let's say for the next one, let's say together with these two, A, and also the next two symbols, we can reduce to B. Okay? And then also together with this, we can reduce to C, and these two will be D, and these two will be E, and then F. That's kind of the order of reduction. And the only question I want to ask you about, how can we claim, based on the way we do the reduction, why can we say bottom-up parsing finds the rightmost derivation? Why? Intuitively. Based on how I hand-wave to you about how things are done. How is this series of reduction over here correspond to rightmost derivation? How? Not directly, but somehow indirectly they are relevant to each other. How? My hints to you, think about the order of reduction. Before I point to Colin, I'll just wait a little bit longer. Colin, go ahead, please. True, but what about the order of reduction? Okay, let me write it down first. If I say the order of reduction, we start with A, and then B, and then C, and then D, and then E, and then F. How is this order of reduction relevant to rightmost derivation? What if we wanted to do rightmost derivation? What would be the corresponding order? Wouldn't it just be the reverse? Start with this, and then rightmost is here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here. Of course, this example here is a little bit contrived. We can try to look at a concrete example later, but I'm trying to say the way you do reduction will just happen to be the reverse order of the rightmost derivation from this particular reduction here. Okay? If you think about the rightmost derivation, it will be exactly the opposite. Start with the root, and then rightmost over here, and then here, and then here, right? What will be the rightmost? Over here again. Rightmost, only one here. Of course, I'm omitting these two, these over here, but you can see the idea, right? So that's one property you want to remember intuitively. So when we say the bottom-up parsing can really find the rightmost derivation, you want to remember it's not directly rightmost derivation, but the reverse of the rightmost derivation. But you can easily reverse that, okay, once you get the parsing order. Okay. Okay, any questions so far about here? We're fine, right? And let's go over maybe one more slide before, once we get to the algorithm, I'll pause, and then we can continue later. And we have another kind of parser called LR1. Before the break, we saw LL1. All right? So let's now understand what LR1 really means. L, here, still from left to right. The way we process the input is still from left to right. That part is the same. What about R? Rightmost derivation. Something we just try to understand intuitively. Rightmost derivation. What about 1? Look ahead symbol, right? If you just want to shout it out, that's a good sign. Look ahead 1 symbol. And LR1 property, let's go over that quickly, can be left to right scan, and also reversed rightmost derivation. Okay, and then 1 look ahead symbol. Okay, good. And next time, we're actually going to start tracing the bottom-up parsing. And the critical notion to really understand for the bottom-up parsing is something called handle. You can think about handle is like in what state are you doing the bottom-up parsing for reduction? That's something we have to focus on when we do the algorithm. All right? And the algorithm itself, I'm going to pause very soon. I just want to mention some points over here. This will be the algorithm. Itself, it's only about, I will dive into the more details next time. But I just want to show to you over here, if you look at the algorithm, okay? If you look at the input over here, you can see we got some context-free grammar, and also we got 2 tables. They are called action and also go to table. So that means in order to really learn about the bottom-up parsing, not just that you want to understand the algorithm. Initially, when we first try to trace the algorithm, we assume these two tables already exist. And then we'll try to see how the algorithm can go. How the algorithm will go once these two tables are available to us is rather straightforward. We'll do that first. And then we're going to look into how to construct these two tables, which are the critical key for bottom-up parsing to work. Right? So there are three things we want to learn about bottom-up parsing. Number one, we want to see how the algorithm will work in terms of tracing it. So we assume that the action table and the go-to table already available to us. That's something we do first. And then we're going to learn about how we can construct the action table and the go-to table, given some grammar. So these are the three things we want to learn about the parsing. Okay, let's cover something new, which is about bottom-up parsing, especially about its algorithm. And there will be several things we have to learn about bottom-up parsing. And today we just do one bit, and then we'll need another chunk of time, maybe after your quiz number 5 on Tuesday and also Thursday, and then we can get it done. So today I want to talk about algorithm and do a little bit tracing, assign to you some exercises, and then take a break, and then we do the exercise I assigned to you the other day, LL1 parser. It would be a very nice preparation for your quiz number 5 on Tuesday. Okay, that'll be the plan for today. If we finish early, we finish early. This will be the algorithm for the bottom-up parsing. And you will see that on your slide as well. Oh, by the way, that's the slide we went over last time, right? Just the background. And there is one term that's still untreated, which is called handle. So this will be a very critical notion about how you can build the so-called action and go-to tables for bottom-up parsing. That's something I'll get to next Tuesday, not for today. Okay, for today, we're going to focus more just on getting the big picture about how bottom-up parsing can be done. And this will be the algorithm. As usual, let me just go over line by line very quickly, make some remark, and then about the different stages, and then we'll do one example in detail together. And I got 2 more examples left to you as self-exercises. All right? Okay, let's try to do that. And this will be the algorithm. Okay? And there is a big assumption we have, which is important to mention again. I briefly mentioned that on Tuesday, but let me do that again. You can see as part of the input over here, not surprising, if you want to do a parse, you definitely need some grammar to actually go with, to actually check against with. There are 2 tables over here I'll show to you right away, which we assume they exist. One is called action. The other one is called go-to. Right? These 2 tables actually serve different purposes, but they actually need to go together closely, which I'll show to you. Right? For now, we simply assume they exist. And the job for next week will be to see how we can build action and go-to tables ourselves. Right? So that'll be the plan. And let's take a quick look about the action and go-to table quickly. This will be one example for the action table. Okay? If you look at the action table, on this column here, we simply got different states, starting from 0 all the way to certain number. So here we got 0 until 11. We got 12 states. Okay? And then every time, if you want to look up the action table, you have to give a states. And then you have to give the current word that you're matching. And the word is really the same notion of word that we talk about for top-down parsing. Okay? And there are 3 kinds of actions that's actually possible. I'll point them out, and then we'll see how they can be traced. ACC, standing for accept, which is obvious. That means we want to accept the string that's being parsed. No syntax error. Okay? ACC. And you can see we got R and S. So these are the 2 other actions we want to watch out for. R over here stands for reduce, which I'll explain. And also S stands for shift. We either have to shift or reduce. Depends on where we are. And we also got another go-to table. The go-to table there, you will take some states, and then you give some variable over here, and then it tells you which state you should really go to. right? So you can see we got action table, we got go to table. So these are two tables which we assume they exist just for today, all right? And we'll see how to build them ourselves next week. And let's now take a look at the algorithm, just at a high level. I'll try to remark as much as I can, and then we'll try to trace one string together. And that string, even though it's that simple, that short, but it's already quite tedious, already require quite a bit of labor, but I think it's doable within 15 minutes or so. We'll definitely do that today. And I'll assign to you some exercise. This part over here is just about initialization. Nothing special, which we'll visualize later. This part over here is just to initialize. And you can see we also got another stack over here called trace, similar to the top-down parsing. That part is the same. However, there's a funny structure of this trace stack. Okay? Let's look at what we have over here. We are running a while loop and then while true. That means at some point inside the branch, either we succeed, in which case we return with a success, with the AST. Or we may just want to go on to the next iteration. Or we may just want to go on to the next iteration with some next word. Or we actually fail. Either we succeed or we fail eventually. So it's guaranteed to terminate. Of course, we don't need to prove about termination for this. We can just prove by on example. Okay? Either succeed or fail. The first one you can see is quite obvious. If the current action simply corresponds to accept, and if you remember, that's the accept that we talk about. For example, if the current state is 1 and the word is already in the file, in that way, we accept. Okay? That's a very simple case. The next two cases over here correspond to the two options I talked about before. Either we can do shift or we can do reduce. Let's talk about shift first, which is here. Okay, let me just use a different color here. So this will be the shift case. Okay, so this will be like a shift. Okay, let's go a little bit abstract here. If, for example, let's say the action I have is to shift to 6, for example, S6. Whenever you actually got 6, some number, this will correspond to I. So that would mean you have to push two things onto the stack. So imagine that if this is already the trace stack, you already got something. What do we push on top? You want to push whatever the current word it is you want to match. For example, it could be, let's say, opening parenthesis, just for example. And also, since you want to shift to I according to the action, you want to push just the 6 over here onto the stack. In the shift action, you always push two things onto the stack. What would that mean? That means later on, if you want to pop off the stack, you don't really pop just the 6. You want to pop the associated symbol as well. So you want to pop pair by pair. So that would be some funny formula you will see actually in the algorithm, in the reduce action. And once you have pushed these two things, and then you will try to read the next word. So you only try to read the next word when you actually got a shift operation. All right? So that's also the next word you want to notice that. Only when shifting. When you are trying to reduce, you don't really try to read a new word. All right, guys, that's about the shift. The only thing you want to remember, every time you want to push for the shift, push two things. Symbol and state number. What about reduce? Okay, reduce part is a little bit funny. Okay, let's say here, let me give one example here. If I got, for example, reduce 5, right, R5, okay, and this part over here will be the reduce action. Let me highlight the box, the whole thing. Let's say, for example, R5. R stands for reduce. And what about 5? 5 here is not a state number. It is referring to some grammatical rule. Okay, let me just make that difference over here right away. The 5 over here is referring to some production rule. whereas the 6 over here for shift is referring to some state number, right? They're both integer, but they mean different things. Okay, and let's take a look. When I say I want to reduce 5, what does that mean? That means I want to go to my input grammar. My input grammar should have already labeled each production rule with number. For example, I got production 1, production 2, 3, 4, and 5. And when I say R5, I'm saying that I'm going to do a reduce operation or reduce action according to production rule number 5. Okay, let me write it down over here. So here, so when I say R5, it's referring to production rule number 5, which is the pair produces opening, closing parenthesis. More precisely, if we are reaching this particular reduce action, what does that mean? That means we have already read this, and we are right here. What will be the corresponding action to do? We can now, to say, replace these two symbols from the stack, and then pop them off and push this guy over here back to the stack. So that will be called a reduction operation. This one is a little bit weird, maybe when you first see it, but that's something we'll see quite a few times when we trace the code. All right, let me repeat once more. The reduction action over here is trying to say, go to that corresponding grammatical production. This will be the right-hand side, and this will be the left-hand side. And a little bit more precise. The right-hand side over here, in general, may have a number of components. In this case, we got 1 and 2. And remember the way we push things onto the stack. For each symbol, we have also its associated state number. So now, if I want to somehow reduce these two symbols and replace them by pair, how many things do I need to pop off from the stack? 2 things? Or 2 times 2. Because I know that each symbol, like this guy here, also has an associated state number. That's why you see something very funny over here. Pop, how many times? 2 times the length of beta times. That's the only tricky thing you have to watch out for. Okay, but we'll see exactly how to do that. Okay, if you actually got this particular production rule, since you got length 2 for the right-hand side, you're going to pop the stack off 4 times, and then push pair back to the stack. All right, and then, of course, you got some table lookup to actually get the associated state number. That's something we'll try to see as well. And then, once you're done, you just push. Basically, you can say we also try to push 2 times. So just to maintain that it's almost like an even number of components on the stack once we have initialized it. Okay? That's the overall structure of the algorithm. The algorithm itself is not too bad because we have a very big assumption that these 2 tables are already available for us to use. But that turns out to be too big an assumption. So we have to know how to construct them as well. But for today, let's say given the tables, given the algorithm, how would you parse the string? That's something we want to see. And on Tuesday, we'll go ahead, construct the tables. All right? Guys, any question so far? Of course, there's one case I didn't quite mention just yet. If we don't accept, we don't shift, we don't reduce, and it fell. Syntax error. Okay? So only 4 cases. And we are just going to trace one string. You would think parsing this string will be rather quick, right? Not as quick as you might think. Let's do it together. Okay? It will take me, hopefully, within 10 to 15 minutes. Bear with me. I'll try to not make any mistake. I'll try to give you guys contribute as well. Only parse this one. After this, I have some more complicated one for you guys to practice. And there's a solution on the slide as well. I'll show you guys how you can interpret the solution. If you decide to study the solution together, that's okay. That will be your choice. But I would suggest at least practice on your own. Simple string like this. And there will be another exercise for you. This apparently is going to run into some syntax error, but you want to see how. All right, so these will be 3 examples. But let's do number 1 together. Okay, let's do it. After this, if you guys have no question, we have a break. All right, just to let you know. All right, let's dive into it. The same algorithm over here, input grammar And also we got action table over here. And also we got go to table over here. So these are the two inputs we assume. All right? And this will be the string that we want to parse. Remember LR1 that we talked about last time. What does the first L stand for? Leftmost derivation? Jordan, do you remember what L stands for? The first L. No, not really. You want to study a little bit more about that. From left to right for the input. All right? As simple as that. That means when we process the string, we want to go from left to right. Good guess, though. All right? But it's not. Okay. Let's now take a look. All right? Initialize an empty. Okay, let's do the initialization just over here. Okay, let me be careful. This part over here. Okay, so this will be the stack that we want to focus on. That should be good enough. And it's called trace. And then initially, we only push one item there called 0. If you ask about how many items will be there in the stack at any time, it's going to be an odd number because initially we only put one component into it. Afterwards, every time we try to push onto a stack, we push 2 and push 2. Every time we pop 2 and pop 2. Just remember, that will be the pattern. Okay? It's a bit weird, but it's the way it works. And we're going to have the word that we want to process. Let me put it here. So the word, initially, from left to right, so initially just here. I'll put it here. It's going to be the opening parenthesis. That'll be the initialization. That's it. And we're now going to dive into the loop. Okay? One by one. First iteration. We're going to, let me use a different color. How about green? Okay? Let's say we're going to get the states. And actually, we got another variable over here. Let me just put it. It's the states. For the very first iteration, the state will just be the top of the trace, which will be, oh, sorry, I forgot to push it. Beg your pardon, my bad. In the initialization, I should have pushed 0 here. Okay, just remember, I forgot. And then, now the states in the first iteration will be trace.top, which will be just 0. Okay, start with that. And what about the action? You have to do some table lookup. All right, go to the action table, which is over here. And you want to go for first dimension will be the states, which will be 0. And the second dimension will be the word, which is the close opening parenthesis. Okay, let's try. So you basically want to go for state 0 and then opening parenthesis. So you got shift 3. Are we good? Okay. So the action will be shift 3. That will be the first action. And we're now going to check the if, else if, else if, else. Which one should we go into? 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one? Swap, please. Absolutely, thank you. So we should go to number 3, shift. All right? And shift is actually rather easy because we know that we're actually going to do the shift. So let me just put it here. So shift 3. Shift to state number 3. So we're going to push 2 things onto the stack. Number 1, we push the word that we are looking at, which is opening parenthesis. To be simple, I'll just put it like that. And then push the state I, which will be 3. And then we're going to move the pointer of the word to the right by 1. So next word. So that means the word, rather than this one here, is going to be this one. You might think we're almost done, right? Not yet. We're only beginning. Okay? If you haven't fallen asleep, there's a chance you might. Okay, be careful. All right, that's first iteration. Okay? Let's now go to the second iteration. All right? Hang on. Second iteration, we're actually going to do, number 1, what will be the states for the second iteration? The top, 3. Updated to 3. And then what will be the action? Somebody? What will be the action? Look up the table with the current state, which will be 3. Current word will be closing parenthesis. What should be the corresponding action? Jordan, please. Shift 7. 3 here. And then closing parenthesis. Yeah, I trust you, but it's good to verify. All right? Shift 7. Absolutely. And apparently, for this iteration, we are actually going to go to the shift branch once more. S7. All right? So we're going to push the current word, which is closing parenthesis. Also, we're going to push the state 7 over here. And the word will be the next word. What will be the next word? William. Absolutely. Thank you. It's implicit. Okay? Absolutely. Thank you. All right, so far we got 2 shift actions executed. Okay? Let's now go to the 3rd iteration. If you go to the 3rd iteration, we're going to check the states and check the action. All right? What will be the state? The top. That's easy. Just 7. What will be the action? Anybody would like to try? Robbie, what will be the action? Yep, 7 will be here. And then the current word is EOF. Under EOF, R5. Thank you, Robbie. Absolutely. R5. All right? That means we're actually going to go to over here and put R5. All right, let's now do reduce action. It turns out there'll be no more shift we have to do. We have read all the inputs words already from left to right, only reduce. Think about what's going to happen here. Eventually, we are going to reduce. Maybe from this, we can reduce to pair. From pair, we can reduce to list. From list, we can reduce to go. That's basically what we're going to do as a rehearsal. All right? Okay, let's try R5. Let's see how we can do. And we're going to reduce. Okay, once you see 5 over here, right? Remember I said 5 is referring to the grammatical rule, 5. So what I will do is I'm going to say 5. Okay? It is referring to pair produces opening, closing parenthesis. All right? And now what you want to figure out is this line. It says you're going to pop the trace stack for this many times. 2 times the length of beta. What's beta? Beta, according to the pattern, is the right-hand side of the production rule, which is this guy over here. How many symbols do we have? 2. Do the math. 2 times 2, 4. You need to pop off the stack 4 times. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. If you do that, pop this, 2, 3, and 4. Effectively, you have get rid of these 2. But 4 times because both of them have the associated state number. That's how we push onto the stack. Right? So this will be the pop. And then what will be the state right now? Back to 0, which is okay. So we are actually going to update the state number from used to be 7, but it's now 0, the top. Okay, and then we're going to push A. Guys, what's A? You cannot say A here. A is only symbolic, right? It's one of the parameters, like variables. What's A here in this case? Anybody? What's A? William. Absolutely. Because we look at, there are 2 symbols over here that can be reduced to pair. That's exactly rule number 5 tells us. All right? So what we do is push pair onto the top. Are we lacking anything for the stack to be complete structure? If you think about the number of components that should be there, in addition to the initial states, every other component should be more like a pair of symbol and variable, right? We have the variable, we don't have the state number just yet. Okay? So that means we have to figure out the next state, which will be using another table, goto. You see, when do you use the goto table? When you do the when you do the reduce action. Okay? Let's try to figure out So go to table is going to be the state number is 0. The variable is pair. Right? If you go to the go to table here, and we talk about state 0, and then corresponding to pair is referring to 2. And then we're going to push this next state here. That would be the third iteration for reduce operation. Are we okay so far? We have no more shift action to do. We only got reduce. And what we have just done was to do the first reduction. We have already shifted to the end of this closing parenthesis. We have reduced these two onto pair. The next iteration, you're going to see how we can reduce the pair to list. All right? Let's do it. Let's be complete. And we are going to go for the fourth iteration. Let me use, what about pink? Right, so now we're going to go for the fourth iteration. What will be the states? On top, 2. And what will be the action? State will be 2. The words will be EOF. That one hasn't changed. What should be the action? Either Chefin or Colin. Chefin, please. Let's verify. I'm pretty sure you're right, but let's check. So we actually got 2 here, and also we got EOF R3. Absolutely, that was correct, right? So that means over here we're going to get R3. So we're going to execute the else if part over here, but it's going to be R3. Okay? R3 is referring to this particular grammatical rule, exactly as we anticipated. It's actually going to reduce pair onto list, but let's see how. Okay? When we get into this, you can see we're going to pop the stack for 2 times beta. What's beta in this case? Just pair. Right? Let me write it down. You can think about R3 over here is the list produces pair. The list produces pair. This will be pair corresponding to beta. The list corresponds to A. All right? Now, the question is, what's the length of beta? Just 1, right? Just 1 here. So that means we're going to pop the stack off for 2 times. Right? Hopefully you got a feeling now. Depending on how many components you have on the right-hand side, 2 times will be the corresponding times you got to do pop. Okay? All right, so we're going to pop off 2 times. So pop it off 2 times, so these 2. All right? And then we're going to figure out the states. Again, it's going to be 0, right? So state will be updated back to 0 again, and then we're going to push what? What will be the A right now? Anybody? Swap. Thank you. Absolutely. This guy here. So we're going to push. I'm running out of space. If you don't mind, I'm going to put it here. Okay? You know what? It's good to be more precise. Give me a moment. And then I'm going to make it smaller. There we go. Okay? List. Sorry, you cannot do that on the quiz or exam. So plan ahead before you do your answer. For me, I can do anything. Right? Good. Anyways, so list over here. Where am I? List here. Good. And then next. What will be the next? Let's do it together. So go to. So we have the states being 0, and then the list will correspond to just 1. All right? So push 1 over here. Okay? That'll be this current iteration. One more. We might be just done. We might be. I don't know. So what we have done in this iteration is to reduce the pair to list. That's what we have done. One more. And that could be the final color, so that would be very important. What about, I don't know, red? Okay? That could be confusing with pink. What about, I think blue is okay. All right, so now what will be the states? So this might be the final iteration. So what will be the states? Will be 1. And what will be the action? Anybody would like to do? This might be the final lookup you need to do. How about one of the girls over here? Anyone would like to tell us what's going to be? No? Okay. Huh? Accept? Good. I agree, but let's verify. Basically, the state is 1. You can see the state here is actually 1. And the symbol is still EOF. So 1 and EOF accept. That means we are just going to go for, oh, beg your pardon. We're just going to go for this part over here. And we succeed. That'll be the last part. Okay, and we are done. So what should you know? Okay, I'll summarize what you should know for this kind of tracing, and then I'll show you what you can see in the written form in the slides, and then we'll take a break. All right? Hopefully it's not too bad for this one. Of course, you should really know how to look up the action table and go to table. That's for sure. Whenever you see some number for the shift and some number for the reduce, know what they mean. They mean different things. And then, in terms of the stack, also be prepared to actually ask about its contents in the quiz or the exam. Okay? And of course, when you trace, want to be careful. There will be another concept which is called handle. And that one there, I can use the stack to actually elaborate, but I'll do that on Tuesday. Okay? There's another concept called handle. And that's something that can be related to the stack. I'll do that on Tuesday. And I will show you one more thing. Okay? And this one here will be your exercise. This one here is also your exercise. Okay? How can you check the answer? If you now look at the slides, okay? The one we just did was this. Exactly what we did. All right? So you can see here the state, the word, the stack. Of course, this will be the bottom of the stack. This will be the top. And also, I will leave the handle part to be explained on Tuesday, as I said. But this will be the action part, right? Exactly what we did. And you know how complicated it would be for this guy here, okay? Like that. Should you actually try to trace by yourself? I would do it. But if you really think you can just maybe by going over the solution, make sure that makes sense to you, assume you can do it, that's fine too. I'll leave that to you. But at least go over the table. Make sure you know what it is doing. We're going to continue with the bottom-up parsing. Not finishing that just yet, but hopefully most of it on Thursday. But today, there's only a few ideas I want to carry over. Okay. First of all, I want to revisit this particular tracing that we did last time. If you went over the recording, I'm pretty sure you did, or you were there last Thursday. This is what we did about the tracing for bottom-up parsing, right? We talk about reduction versus shift, right? So these are the two main actions we may do. And of course, we talk about the stack over here. And I mentioned there is one word which I'm going to elaborate, which is about the idea of handle. That's what we're going to cover today. Okay, let's see what a handle is. Briefly speaking, a handle simply means the state of your parser somewhere in the stack that's actually ready for reduction. It's actually written in the notes. But let me show you what I really mean. It's really important idea about handle. If you ask about what's the essence about bottom-up parsing, it's about handle. Let's take a look. I want to talk about two things to actually explain the handle. One will be just show you what a handle is, and the second one is I want to revisit about the idea of rightmost derivation. Okay, let's do the handle first. And if you remember this particular stack, of course, if you got any trouble on recalling it, watch the recording. Okay? And that's the corresponding table that we had, right? That's the stack contents. And today, I'm going to explain to you how to interpret this particular column, which is called handle over here. Okay, over here. You can see some of them simply say none, means not applicable. Some of them actually got some stuff over here for the handle. All right? Think about the handle simply means, for example, this guy over here. This is a handle. So this means this is a state of the parser that's ready for reduction. And what reduction exactly should we do at this stage? If you remember, we actually looked at the table and we found that it should be R5. That's what we had last time, right? Reduce 5, meaning that we're going to use rule number 5 over here to do the reduction, right? That's what we did last time, okay? So this is called a reduction. And let's recall just a little bit more. What exactly did we do? You can see that over here in the stack, this is what we got. You can see we got the opening parenthesis, some state number over here, closing parenthesis, and some state number here, right? We talked about the pair last time, okay? And the way we did, once we find the handle, we're going to replace this guy over here by the pair. That's basically what we did. So I want to highlight this part here. That's something you will just want to make sure revisit the table, convince yourself. This one here and this one here. We basically reduce these two symbols into pair, which correspond to this particular alternative production rule, right? So once you have done that, you're going to replace that by just a pair. That's what you saw last time, all right? So what we have seen so far, I just want to link the table, especially the handle column over here, back to the stack. So whenever you are in a state in the stack where you're ready to do some reduction, meaning that you have some R action, in that case, it's a handle, okay? We're going to see some very interesting combination of different states for the bottom-up parser. That's something we'll see a little bit later today. But that's the first part. Are we okay so far about handle? Okay, it's a state that's ready for reduction. Number 2, I want to revisit this idea. When I first introduced the idea about bottom-up parsing, I sketched very, very abstractly. If you try to recall, let me just show you the diagram I used to draw, but I'm going to make it much better today. This is a diagram I drew, maybe about last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. I said the way we're going to do the bottom-up parsing is going to correspond to the reverse of the rightmost derivation. I kind of sketched the idea very abstractly. But now I'm going to show you how you can see concretely how it is done, okay, using the tracing very quickly. So what the example I'm going to use, let me go back, is over here. So this table here is on your slides. Okay, let me just go back here and show to you. It's on slide 64, right? So that's the parsing process for this particular input. All right. And of course, you got to make sure you actually understand how this one is derived and make sure you're convinced. And I'm going to use this table over here to illustrate to you is indeed the process of the bottom-up parsing correspond to the reverse of rightmost derivation. How? Okay, let's take a look. We're going to focus on all the handles and to see how the handles will actually build up the parse tree. That's basically what we're going to do. Okay. Let's now take a look. Let's see. First of all, let me highlight the handle part, which is here. And for those that are simply just none, you can know that they simply correspond to the shift operations, which we don't have to worry for the handle, right? We're going to focus on this one here, 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 and this one here. So these are the handles we can see to see how the parse tree is going to be built. All right, let's see. Let's start with this one. This one means so far we have read opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis. By applying rule number 5, we can reduce this guy over here into a pair. All right, let's now highlight it. The first one I want to do is this guy here is reduced to pair using rule number 5, right? You can see reduce 5. Let's now write it. So this one is telling us we got this one, and then they are reduced to pair. Okay? And then we got another one. Another one is to say, so far we have read opening parenthesis. Oh, let me just use the highlighter. We have read this one here, meaning that this is the pair we have reduced so far, but we also read some surrounding opening and closing parentheses, right? And we can also reduce the whole thing into a pair using rule number 4, right? You can see that's exactly the rule, right? That's how you read the table. All right, let me just do that. So here you can see it can be reduced to this using rule number 4 for reduction. And how do I draw that? Okay, let me move this a little bit. So that means we have read surrounding parentheses, and all 3 of them will be reduced into a pair by using rule number 4, which is over here. All right, so far so good. And the next one. The next one, we say that for this pair over here, we're going to reduce it using rule number 3, which is over here. So list produces pair. That's what we can reduce. So we're going to reduce pair into list. Okay? So let's try this again. So we're going to reduce that into a list. Okay? So far, so good. Let's get to almost the final one. Okay? And here we also got another one here. Let's say, how about purple? Okay, we read another independent pair of closing, like a pair of parentheses. And then we can use rule number 5 again over here, and then it's going to be reduced into just pair. Okay, let's see. So what we have is this part over here is going to be reduced to just pair. And according to rule number 5. Okay. The final one, you can see here, we got list, we got pair, we got list, we got pair. According to rule number 2, we can reduce them into just a single list. Agree? Okay? And this part over here is pretty much corresponding to the original input. So we're pretty much done. Okay? Let's do a final reduction. And then I'll show to you the important remark. Okay, so let's now do, what color can I use? Maybe red. Okay. And so we got list and pair using rule number 2, which is over here. We're going to reduce that into a list. So list and pair reduce into a list. Okay? That's when we are ready to accept. Okay? And now, why is this corresponding to or related to rightmost derivation? Okay? Let's try to do the following. First of all, let's recall. The order of reduction. If you think about it, we did this one first, right? And then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. Agree? That's exactly what we did. If you're not convinced, you can rewind. Okay? And that will be basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 5. And the important question is, what about the order of rightmost derivation? It's going to be, we start with this. The rightmost will be this one. And then we go with this. What will be the rightmost under this? Just this. What will be the rightmost under this? It will be this. So that's exactly 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Reverse. So this really confirms about the observation we had. So now, what's really the important remarks up to this point? We learned about the top-down parsing. And that one there simply corresponds to leftmost derivation. For the rightmost, for the bottom-up parsing, it's not exactly rightmost derivation, but it's reverse. So very closely related to. That's really important for you to know. Okay, any question about this? I think this will complete the picture about our introduction to bottom-up parsing. Okay? Everybody's okay? I hope that's clear. Okay. And let me just go back to the slides. And then what I want to talk about today is just to introduce the idea about LR1 items. Okay? It's a kind of interesting idea, very symbolic that we have to learn. And then next time we'll talk about the algorithm of how to build the actions and go to table. Right? So the action and go to tables, they will encode legitimate ways to find handles, basically about ready states for reduction. Okay? We just talked about handles. And this guy here would be the syntax you will have to know. Okay? Let me explain that quickly. Okay? So this is something called a LR1 item. If you remember, bottom-up parsing is about LR1 parser, right? Do you guys remember what LR and 1 stands for? Quick check. L? Anyone?
Left to right.
Left to right, thank you. What about R? Rightmost direction, which we just saw, right? How about 1? One look ahead, exactly. Thank you. Okay, just remember. It's a very easy question to definitely answer in the exam. All right, let's now take a look at this. Okay, let's start with something simple. By the way, so every LR1 item, you can think about every time you see a single LR1 item, it's about a possible states of your bottom-up parser. Okay, that's how you can understand intuitively. Possible states of parser. And every time you want to describe it, you want to make sure you enclose the contents within a pair of square brackets. It's just the way it is. Okay? And let's look at more detail. Number 1, you can see the first component over here is about some reduction rule. So here, the reduction rule that we have is, so this is a reduction rule or production rule. You know, I think production rule is the right term, right? Because we talk about different alternatives for the reduction. So this will be a production rule. Okay, so in this case, A produces beta followed by gamma. All right? And what about this bullet point? I'll get there in a moment. Okay? And what about this A over here? A over here is the look ahead. More precisely, it is a member of the follow set of A, which we ultimately want to reduce into. All right? So how do we interpret this? You can also see the slide later. Our goal is to eventually reduce into A. In order to reduce into A, we have to first match beta and then match gamma. That's what we have to do. Once we get to this point, having already recognized beta and gamma, we will be in a handle, in a ready state to reduce back to A. Okay? But what about the current states for the parser? This will be this bullet point you have to watch out for. So this bullet point here is the current. You can think about the current position or current top of the stack. Think about this is the stack of the parser. And we have already, so maybe there might be something else, but the top will be just the beta. That's what we have recognized so far. And we are now at a stage where we have already matched beta. We have not really matched gamma just yet. Ultimately, once we got gamma also over here, we will be ready to actually reduce these two guys back to just A. So that's kind of the idea. All right, let me write it down. That's how you can understand this notation, because we need to worry about how this dot over here may float in different position to represent different states. Okay? So you can think about over here, once we recognize, okay, let me say two things. Number 1, we have already recognized beta. Already recognize beta because it's the top of the stack. It's already there. Once we recognize gamma, we will be in a handle which is ready for reducing into A. Right? So the critical point you want to watch out for is beta gamma, and also A, right? Are we okay so far? That's how we represent the states. We'll do exercise, don't worry. Also, I will assign some exercise to you too, okay? All right, so that's about the notation. Let's see the next part. Right, everything has been set, all right? The only detail which I didn't quite mention, which can easily also be derived. So whenever you try to replace, maybe once you have, let's say once you have read through beta and gamma, of course, their corresponding state number should be replaced as well, right? That's how we did it for the tracing, okay? That's what you will see in the slides to be more precise. And let's now talk more about how this LR1 item may float, okay? So there are three terminology that we have to, well, three terms we have to know. One is called possibility, the other one called partial completion, and the third one is called completion. Let's go over one by one, okay, quickly. Okay, let's go over. Okay. Why don't you guys just stare at this one, and this one here. They look similar, but they are not the same. Okay? Why don't you stare at that just for 1 minute, and then I'm going to explain quickly how to understand them. And then we'll do some exercise. Okay. Another moment. Okay. Of course, the main thing to notice is about the position of the bullet point. For the possibility, it's almost like the beginning of the parsing, in which case, you can think about the top of the stack has read nothing, so it's empty. And about partial completion, we might just be in the middle. We have recognized something, and we are still expecting to recognize more before we can do reduction. And here, the bullet point is at the end of the production rule, in which case, we should be ready to reduce back to A, as long as the current word will match this look ahead symbol. Right? Let me talk about them one by one very quickly. You can also see the written notes on the slide. For the first one, let's now take a look. This will be the initial state of parsing towards reduction to A. Our ultimate goal is to make a reduction into A. To really do that, we got to recognize beta first and then recognize gamma. But so far, we have not recognized any one of them. We're just in the beginning. Okay, that's the beginning, initial stage. And this will be the partial stage, which pretty much is like this. Okay, that we just talked about. And for this one here, you can think about we got a stack. We already got beta on the stack, but we're still expecting gamma to be read into the stack, right? So this will be already recognize beta, and then still expecting to recognize gamma. And hopefully, we can recognize gamma, and then we should be ready to reduce back to A. That's the intermediate stage. And of course, in general, you don't necessarily just got two components for the production rule. It could be several, right? This is just symbolic, just for illustration. And a final point to make. If you look at this one, the bullet point is at the end of the components. So that means we have already recognized all the components we actually expect to really recognize. So let's draw the stack very quickly. For this one here, if you think about a stack, we have recognized beta, and we have recognized gamma. And then here, you have to pay more attention to the look ahead symbol. Okay, so this will be a member of the follow, right? The follow of the variable here that we want to reduce into. Okay, so now this is the idea. if the current word matches the locate head symbol A, then we can reduce. Okay, you only consider the locate head symbol in the final stage. All right. That's about the very quick walkthrough about different stages. And we're going to do exercise to make sure you're able to actually manipulate such symbol. Okay, that's what we have to do today. And then next class on Thursday, we're going to see how you can use this kind of manipulation to create the table. Okay, that'll be the idea. All right. Any question until now? Are we okay? All right. Let's now take a look. Okay, good. Let's do some quick exercise together. Oh, sorry. I should really switch. There we go. Over here. Simple question. Okay. Let's say this is some concrete grammar, some example grammar, which we just did, right? Two questions for you. What would be the corresponding LR1 item written in this particular syntax? What would be it to correspond to the initial states of the parsing? And also the final states of the parsing, if it succeeds. Question 1. How should we write it? I can start you up. It should be something like this, right? Okay, what else? Well, something should go here, and something should go here, right? Jordan, go ahead. Yeah, okay, I agree. Remember, the syntax tells you you should really put some production rule. So why don't we say, which production rule should you put? Okay, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which one? 5? But we talk about initial state, right? Think about initial state. That means what in the initial stage, what kind of a rule do we expect, or what kind of symbol do we expect to really match ultimately? You should really look at this guy here. Because we start with the goal, the start variable, ultimately we want to match a list which can be reduced back to the goal. That's our goal, right? Okay, good. Why don't we write it down first? So this one, I'm going to wipe it out. It's going to be the goal produces list. Now, where should the bullet point go? Should the bullet point go here? Should it go here? Should it go here? Should it go here? Or should it go here? I'm teasing you guys, but where should it go? If you write this in the exam, wow, too bad, sorry. You will make me laugh, but sorry. I got to do the right thing, right? Okay, guys, any idea? In the beginning, right? Swap. Before list, absolutely. Okay, guys, this is an easy one. Okay, put it here. So this means we are in the beginning stage. We haven't read anything just yet, but we're expecting to match the list ultimately. Okay, and what about this part here? By definition, this part over here should be the follow set of the variable that we want to reduce into. So this should be a member of the follow of this goal. And I can tell you that the follow set for this one is actually straightforward, given that it is the start variable. What should that be? And the file, absolutely. Okay? It turns out there's only just EOF over here. So only put EOF over here. Okay? I thought we're good. Just to get you a little bit more familiar with the notation. All right. How about this one? Now you guys should feel a little bit better. How about this one here? Okay, let me also start you with first. And which rule should we put? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Robbie? 5. Okay. I tell you, Robbie, what the problem might be if you put 5. Let's say we put 5, for example. If you say you put 5, produces this and this, right? And maybe it makes sense to put a bullet point right here, right, at the end. I tell you why this would not be a general answer. This only tells you that you have matched a matching pair of brackets. But if you go back, for example, to where we were over here, this would be some state like here. Is it the final states? Not necessarily. So that would not be a good answer. Good try, but you should know why it's not a good answer. All right? Okay? Okay to be wrong at this stage. If you don't mind, I'm going to say cross, not necessarily the final states. Okay, another try. Swap. Yeah, that makes more sense to me. Because if you guys remember, let's see why. If you go back to this table here, basically, ultimately, we want to reduce back to the list. Once you go back to the list, you can think about list can be reduced directly back to goal, right? Yes, I agree. Okay, let me put it here. So that'll be the ultimate answer. So here, okay, just remember the syntax. Syntax is really important, right? So it's going to be the goal produces the list. But this time, the bullet point is actually going to go to the end over here as opposed to the beginning, if you see the comparison. And the follow set would just be the same, just EOF, the same. Okay, good, easy question. Let's now do something a little bit more sophisticated, okay? This is a question. Okay, I'll try to explain a little bit. This one is kind of symbolic, but we'll do something more concrete once we pass this stage. Let's say we have a single production rule. A produces beta, let's say, okay? And the question is we want to derive all the LR1 items for this. I can tell you that you cannot, because we don't really know exactly what beta is, so we can only try to use maybe like a formal notation for that. Okay? So what we really want to do is by using, I'll give you a little bit hints. Somehow the answer should really contain a union of several combinations. Some union. And then also set comprehension. And also there should be some floating bullet point. This will be my hints to you. That'll be the answer. Why don't you guys think a little bit, just for 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to go over the answer with you. Answer is on the slides, but it's easier too. It might be more effective. I can just develop from scratch together with you. Once we understand the answer here, it will be applicable to any concrete example, which we're going to do. The answer is going to be something like this. Some set comprehension, union with maybe another set comprehension, something like that. Inside the set comprehension, we want to somehow play with the position of the bullet point, somehow. All right? I just noticed that there was a very terrible typo from my end. I really meant to put gamma as well. Sorry about that. I'll just change the question on the fly. I really meant to do that, so that will be more interesting, not just beta. Okay? Okay, let's now work out the answer together. 2 dimensions. Dimension number 1. Dimension number 1 is about the floating position. Floating positions of where the stack top is. It could be, for example, let's say we got A produces beta, gamma. It could be exactly in the beginning, right? Or it could be A produces, maybe we have already recognized beta, And we are now at a point that we are expecting to match gamma. Or it could be that A produces, we have already recognized beta and gamma, and we're now at this stage. That's dimension number one. So we got three possibilities. Of course, think about in general. If I know the length of the components, how many possible floating positions do I have? Right? Think about it. Okay? That's dimension number one. What about dimension number two? Dimension number two would be, if you look back to the syntax over here. Here you can see A, as I said, it would be just the follow, a member in the follow set for the variable that we want to reduce into. In general, this will be a set. Let's say the set has cardinality, let's say 3. Let's say we got some symbol X, we got some symbol Y, we got some symbol Z over here. In that case, A here can either be X, can be Y, can be Z, right? So that's the second dimension. You want to do the combinatorial. You want to do some combination. Okay? This will be the follow set of A. So this will be the intermediate hints I can give to you. After understanding D1 and D2, we should be able to derive the ultimate answer. How can we combine them together to say these are the set of all possible items for this particular production rule? Okay? Anyone would like to give it a first try before I tell you the answer? Why don't we start with this one here? Okay? Basically, we want to say we want to have just a beginning stage. If we have the beginning stage, okay? Let's say we have the beginning stage, which will be A produces here, beta, gamma over here. But what should we put over here? The look-ahead symbol. The look-ahead symbol here can be any member of A. Any member of the follow set of A. So we cannot put just follow over here. It's not allowed. It should be a single symbol. So that's why set comprehension could be useful. All right, I'm going to write it down directly to save time, but you want to make sure you understand how it is derived. If we simply put, let's say A over here, okay, let me just put it over here, okay, just give myself more space, such that A is a member of the follow, okay, just a little bit more space, actually, follow of A. And this is a set. Okay, let's see what I'm doing here. This particular set represents all the possible LR1 items where you're in the beginning stage of the parsing, but the look-ahead symbol is just a member of the follow set of A. Right? So this really represents all the possible look-ahead symbols for you. This will be one set. Can you guys complete the rest? Right? You can just do something similar. This will be one. And why don't we, so this part would really be similar. It's just that the bullet point is going to float. So we're going to say union with A produces beta. We have recognized it, so now we are here. Gamma, and then A, such that A is a member of the follow of A. The second one, right? You can see the only thing that's changed is about where the bullet point is. And there should be another one, the final one. A produces beta, gamma. We have matched these two, and we are now here. And A. And A is a member of the follow of A. And notice that here. Right? This will be the ultimate answer, right? For any production rule that you have over here, you basically have to figure out all the possible floating points and then combine that with every possible look-ahead symbol and work out a set, right? That's an abstract example here. We're going to do a concrete one, and then we are done for today, all right? Any question up to now? Okay. Let's now take a look. Okay, that's something we have seen already. Okay, yep, that will be the answer we just derived altogether, right? Okay, let's now take a look at one more exercise over here. Oh, one thing to ask you guys about, which would be relevant. Oh, just before that, why don't we try this one first? Okay. Now, rather than just dealing with A produce beta gamma, we actually got a concrete production rule. Pair produces parenthesis pair followed by parenthesis, right? That's a production rule. So now, can we derive all the LR1 items? And this is given to you. Of course, in the exam, this might be something you have to calculate. But for now, let's say you're given this. Number one, before we derive, how many LR1 items do we have to enumerate? How many? In order to figure out how many, you will have to look at two dimensions. How many possible floating points? And how many follow set for the relevant variable which you want to reduce into? Okay? How many floating point possible? 4. Okay, I agree. Here, 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 or here. Okay, 4. So, possible floating point position would be just 4. The point can be here, can be here, can be here, or it can be here, right? After each components and in between. And second dimension. So now, which follow set should we look at? Should we look at a follow set for list, or should we look at a follow set for pair? Pair? Agree? Exactly here, right? Okay, good. And also, the cardinality of the follow of pair. And of course, you can put this notation if you like, right? Just its cardinality. Right? So what would this be? Well, given that 1, 2, and 3, which would be 3. So in total, you're going to get 12. Okay? Let's enumerate them all. That'll be the last thing we do. And then I'll cite an exercise to you. All right? Let's take a look. Why don't we start with the initial one? Initial one is going to be pair produces, and then bullet point right here, this pair, and like that. I want to write it better because I'm going to do copy and paste very soon. All right, and what will be the possible look-ahead symbol? It could be EOF, right? It could be, right? Let me now do some copy and paste. 1, 2. Oops, sorry, let me do it again. So in this way, you can see exactly how you can derive it yourself. But let's now 3, and of course, I can make it just smaller. So I can fit everything. 1, 2, 3. Oops. Okay, 1 here, and I got some extra over here. So it can be EOF. It can be opening parenthesis. It can be closing parenthesis. Oh, just 3. I beg your pardon, just 3, because the cardinality is 3. Are you guys okay with what I have done so far, right? For this particular floating position in the beginning, the look-ahead symbol can either be EOF, or it can be opening parenthesis, or closing parenthesis, corresponding to the member of the follow set for the relevant variable. Okay? Now, how can I complete the rest? Well, for each one of the others pair, well, like a block, You still have to numerate EOF and this, right? But now what should change? The floating position, all right? And let me do that. The first one is going to be right here. So I don't have this anymore. So I'm going to put just here, 2, 3. Are we okay so far, right? And to really make sure I can fit everything, I'm just going to make it even smaller. Okay. I think that's good. Yeah, so you can actually see the final answer. Okay, and we need 4 in total. Right here, right? How should we change the bullet points for these? This one here, oh, you know what? Let me just make sure. 1, 2, 3, and also 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's now try to mark it. So for this, in the beginning, for this, after matching opening parentheses, and for these, it would be after matching the pair. So I'm going to put a pair over here. And for the final one, it will be after matching everything, which will be here. All right? That's what you will have to do if you're given a question like this. Can you do copy and paste? Too bad you cannot. I could. You cannot. Okay, good. All right, guys, I hope that's clear at least, right? Okay. So the idea would be when you try to construct a table for action go-to, you will have to understand the kind of underlying fundamental ideas. That's why we want to cover this first before we get to Thursday lecture. All right? And some exercise for you, and then we are done. And for your exercise, you will have to compute, let's say, okay, two exercises for you. Number 1, given this particular grammar, you want to derive all the LR1 items. And these are all of them. All right? So you can try to convince yourself these are all the possible states for the parser. The answer is already there. For example, you can see this. Let's say here, this is what we just have done. Right? Okay, make sure you get yourself convinced. That's exercise number 1. Exercise number 2. Given this grammar, derive all the LR1 items. Okay? I would suggest before you even try to enumerate all the possibilities, come up with how many there should be. That should be easy for you to predict, and then try to enumerate them. Okay? I may not necessarily ask you to come up with the LR1 items for the whole grammar in the exam. I might just choose maybe 1 or 2 production rules, but it's hard to say. Maybe I'll give you a smaller grammar for you to enumerate, but at least you know how to do it. All right? Right, so these are the 2 exercises for you. All right, I'll leave that to you. We introduced the idea about LR1 item, right, for bottom-up parsing. And this will be the syntax that you should really know, right? That's something we discussed thoroughly on Tuesday. We only discussed about how you can, understand the individual components' meaning and how you can enumerate about the possible items. Today, we're going to see how we can, let's say, given a particular grammar, if we want to do bottom-up parsing, how can we enumerate its corresponding states using this notation here? That's what we'll do today. Okay? And make sure you understand about possibility, partial completion, etc. Right? That's definitely useful for going through the material today. All right? Basically, that's it. Do you guys have any question about this particular notation here before I move on? We definitely need that for today. Robbie? Yeah, about the data sheets or cheat sheets. What's your guys' thought? Or you have no preference? I can tell you what the difference might be. If you guys are allowed the cheat sheets, in that case, I wouldn't ask questions more related to definitions. On the other hand, if you guys don't have any cheat sheets, I might ask some simple question about definitions. In which case, for the critical concept, if you know about the definition, you can also get the marks. Do you guys have any strong opinion, like you think there should be cheat sheets or not? If no strong opinion, I will decide for you guys. Any strong opinion? You can speak up if you want to. I'll tell you right away. Any opinion? How about no cheat sheets? That's what I thought. All right, how about that? Okay, no cheat sheet. However, you don't need to memorize the algorithm. Like especially for the parsing. If I ever ask you questions related to parsing, I'm gonna put it in appendix. That's something you don't need to memorize. However, for other critical actions like how to, I'll talk a little bit more maybe on Tuesday. So maybe I wouldn't say too much for now. Okay, but no cheat sheets, confirm. Okay, good. Thank you. Let's now cover today's topic. Okay, just before I dive into it, I would like to remind you some very important analogy. Remember, we talked about how you can convert an arbitrary epsilon NFA into a DFA. And we use a technique called epsilon closure and also subset construction, and also lazy evaluation. We're going to do something very similar today on the LR1 item. Okay, let me just remind you very quickly about a critical thing you should really know. So let's say you have some input epsilon NFA. I'll just draw that just for conceptual reminding. So let's say if you got, let's say Q0, you have some epsilon transition, maybe you have some other thing, maybe 0, and etc. Okay, there would be some corresponding output DFA. And if you remember the corresponding one over here, especially this state, do you guys remember how to calculate the corresponding states for the DFA, just for this one here? Do you guys remember? That's something that will be very helpful for today. Anyone remember? We cannot just put this guy here, right? Directly. Not necessarily true in general. Robbie. You got to calculate epsilon closure, absolutely. Okay, so two things I want to say. One thing is already mentioned by Robbie. You definitely want to calculate the E-close of Q0. And that one there is going to be a set of states. And this set over here is going to be used as the initial states. And of course, I'm going to remind you with the table that you used to see earlier. So two things I wanted to remind you, which we'll definitely see today. One thing is about the concept of closure. And the second thing is the concept about subset state. These are the two things you will need to somehow draw some analogy to today. All right, let's take a look. Just that's enough about reminding you what you did before, and that will definitely help for today. Let me move on to the slides. And what we spoke about last time, if you're given some grammar, you can definitely enumerate all the 33 items, right, including initial and final state. And today, we're actually going to talk about, first of all, there is a term you need to know. It's called canonical collection, or CC for short. Okay? Let me show you some example right away. Before that, what's really the definition for canonical collection? Let's draw an analogy right away. Canonical collection is a set. Every member in the canonical collection is itself a subset. It's more like a subset states that we just reminded you about. So CC0, CC1, CC2, and etc. Each one of them is a subset state, so-called. How would it look like? Let's take a look at some example right away. And these are all the example subset states. For example, you can take a look at, this one may be a little bit small. But if you look at that one there actually is a big set, right? Over here, each individual item there is an LR1 item. So each member in the canonical collection is a set of LR1 items. Okay? That's number one to remember. That's something we will have to manipulate today. And of course here, this particular member in the canonical collection, like a member number 11. Remember, we're starting with 0. That one there has just a singleton set, just one single LR1 item. Okay? But it could be multiple because it's a set. Okay? Just remember that. Let's go back to definition. And let's go over some very simple property based on this definition. It's a valid subset states of LR1 parser. And each one of them is a set of LR1 items, as I just showed to you. And then this will be, remember that's power set notation. Basically, we're saying that the CC you have will be all the reachable subset states you can have from the initial state of the parser. right? It's like all the reachable states from the input epsilon NFA. Similar idea. And what will be the maximum cardinality of CC? It's a quick check, given what we have said so far. Maximum, not necessarily reaching there all the time. Well, let's say this. If you have, let's say, 5 members, that's possible. Each one of them is an R1 item. What are the possible set of subsets? What's the maximum cardinality? How do we compute its size? You guys remember? Swap, you say yes. Let's say we got 5 possible states. How many possible subset states do we have, maximum? 32? Yes, 2 to the power of 5, exactly. So let's just remember this formula. It will be 2 to the power of how many R1 items you have. Very good, okay? But like how we did a lazy evaluation earlier, it don't necessarily have to reach this many. So it only depends on how the lazy evaluation will lead you to. All right, so here, so that's analogy I talked about, and we're going to go to the manipulation very soon. So you can think about all the each set of LRY item, the set of all LRY items will be the states for your NFA. That's the input. And the output CC canonical collection will just be all the subset states, similar to the DFA. Okay? Are we okay so far? It's just a definition. And we're going to see how we can manipulate this, right? And the first algorithm we're going to learn, we'll do one algorithm before the break and another one after the break. So we're going to do 2 today. The first algorithm is something called closure. And this closure here is kind of similar to the epsilon closure. Idea is similar. Given some single starting point, you may have to reach out to certain other multiple points that are reachable, right? And the closure is like an algorithm here. Let's go over line by line. As usual, it's not very long and pretty much symbolic in the algorithm itself. So that's why we're going to do example and do this one. Okay? And once you see the slide, you will see line by line explanation as well. But let's now take a look to see how we can understand this. Okay? Let's take a look. Okay, let's see this, the closure. Let me just go over that line by line, and then we can draw, again, analogy to how you perform the subset construction. Okay? So the closure algorithm over here, we are given some input grammar, usually, and you're also given a set of LR1 items. Okay? So this will be a set. This will be the starting point. And what you want to really calculate as output will be a set of LR1 items as well. That's kind of close within the starting point. Okay? Let's now take a look. Right, we got very short over here. And this one here, as usual, we run a while loop until we actually until we reach a stable point where nothing new can be added, right, to the set. So you can see here, I'll just put some remark over here. So that means you want to keep growing the output set S until nothing new can be added. All right, that's the condition for the loop. Okay, let's now take a look at 1, 2, and 3. We got these 3 lines. That means we have some combination to figure out. But let me go over that, make some remark, and then we'll do example. Okay. And the first one over here, we need to find out in the existing set, we want to find out all the LR1 item of this particular form. Okay. For every LR1 item over there, you can see we got some production rule over here. And then we have the bullet point here. And also we got these 2 are the components you have to match by the pattern. And this one over here will be the look-ahead symbol. Find each one of them. Okay? And let's try to understand a little bit about this item over here. How do we interpret that? Okay? If you look at this one here particularly, let's take a look. This one here, number 1, what has been recognized already? according to this rule, and of course, you want to see where the bullet point is. What has been recognized? What? Delta, C, or something else? Anyone? This form here. What has been recognized? Dot, dot, dot. Which means as long as you can recognize something there, could be epsilon sometimes. Okay? So what has been recognized will be just dot, dot, dot. Okay? And number 2, what is expected to be recognized next? Recognized next. And this one should be easy to answer. What would that be? Should be to the right of the bullet point, right? Which will be just C over here. So far we have identified the 2 critical components. One will be the dot, 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 another one will be the C. And the delta simply just occur after the C. Okay? That means after recognizing C, if you want to reduce back to A, you need to also recognize delta. Right? That one's easy, just according to definition. And also, we got to look ahead symbol. That's where we are. Okay? That's what we have to recognize first. And then, for this particular variable C, we want to do something about it. This C over here. This is what's to be recognized next. We want to somehow find different alternative to somehow rewrite it. And to really find it, we need to find all the production rule, which will start with C. So that's why the C here is going to correspond to the C over here. Find all the possible way to really reduce back to C. Okay? So let me put it here. All the alternative for reducing to C. Okay? We'll do example right after we go through the algorithm. And then after this, we also want to find out the new look ahead. Okay? Let me leave this part over here. I'm going to put some remark a little bit later to explain why it should be delta A. But let's take a look at this. This one here. The S over here, the initial set, is going to be expanded by a new set. And the new set just contains a single LR1 item. Okay, let's take a look. And this one over here, if you take a look, it looks like this. C produces gamma and then B. So this will be the new item to add to the closure. The new LR1 item to be added to the closure, which we want to calculate. Okay, and let's see a little bit more over here. And if you remember what we just remarked over here, because we know C would be the next one to be recognized in our parsing. So we want to find all the alternative rule for reducing back to C. For each one of them, we're going to start from just the beginning. Okay, and then the look ahead symbol over here will be something you have to think a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to put some notes over here. Once we have gone through the some example, hopefully that'll be clearer to you. Okay, so B here, according to the definition for the algorithm here, so the B will be a member of the first of delta A. Let's take a look at this very quickly. Okay, why delta A? If you go back to the original item that we are trying to match, you will see after recognizing C, we might just want to see delta, right? So in some way, delta potentially is the follow of C. So that's why when you actually want to add this particular item over here, the look ahead has to be updated. Okay? And then here, delta over here and A. Here's a question for you guys if you're following still. Why do we have to say delta A rather than just delta? It's an important question here. question. Why not B is a member of the first of just delta? Why do we have to say delta A rather than delta? Given that what we really expect to see after this C is just delta. So why do we have to worry about A? That's an important question. Okay? Of course, you can definitely take some time to think about after class. But in case any one of you have some thought, why does it have to be delta A rather than just delta? It has to do with some condition that we said before. Remember when we calculate the first set and the follow set, we always talk about something that might be, William. Absolutely. That's exactly the point. Good. Good. Good guess. Well, unless you guess. Maybe you didn't guess. Okay, very good. Why not just okay? It's because delta might be knowable. So in the case where delta is actually epsilon, in case epsilon is in the first of delta, in that case, you don't have anything here. So that's why A will still remain to be the look ahead for the new item. All right, okay? It's a very abstract algorithm, I agree. So I just want to go over with you every step, at least you know what's really involved. So when we look at the example, you can see how to calculate it. Okay? And before we try to go over some example, let me just draw some analogy here very quickly. Okay? What we're going to do is like this. We'll start with maybe some set over here. You can think about this will be the starting set. Hey, if you remember, this is the table that we used to do when we want to construct the transition table, right? For the epsilon NFA, when we want to convert epsilon NFA into DFA. So this will be some starting set. And do you guys remember how to calculate, for example, here? How do we make a transition from here to here, right? You somehow have to say, what will be the resulting state from Q0 taking D? And what will be also the resulting state from Q1 taking D? And then take the epsilon closure, right? That's what we used to do. So that's something we'll definitely see. So I'm going to include this table over here. For many of the computation we're going to do, they somehow correspond to this. Maybe that's something I can also wrap up on Tuesday. Okay? Let's now do some example, and then we'll take a break. So this example will take some time to really do. So here is the question. CC is the canonical set. Okay, so this CC here is the set of subset states. Okay, and then each subset states is actually itself a set of LR1 items. All right, just keep that in mind. All right, so we are now given this particular grammar, and then this is the algorithm we just kind of briefly walk through. And what we want to calculate is the initial subset states. So this is the initial subset states for the parser. Subset states of the parser. Eventually, we're going to show you how you can calculate the DFA for the parser itself. It's just a finite state machine. So think about what's going to happen is the parser is going to start with an initial states, which is CC0. Okay? And after the break, we're going to see, given this particular CC0 as the initial state, what if we take some transition? For example, what if we have red opening parenthesis? What's going to be the corresponding subset states? That's what we'll do after the break. For now, we'll see how to compute this one to begin with. Okay? That's some roadmap to show to you. And whenever you see this kind of question, how do you calculate the initial subset state? How would you do it? Okay? You want to find out what's the initial state first and find its closure. That's what you did when you did the epsilon NFA to DFA conversion. So that's why I put some hints over here. Let's go over it together. We're going to calculate the closure, which we just went over how to do it. of the parser's initial states. What's the parser's initial states? Do you remember? Isn't that something we just learned last time? Let me just find that for you. Right, over here. Initial state. So this will be where we start from. Okay? So what we want to do now is, let me write it down. So here we got parser's initial states is, okay, here you can see this will be the starting rule. It's going to be the goal produces, nothing has been recognized as the initial states, and then the list. And the look ahead will just be EOF. That's something we said last time, right? So this will be the starting initial state. And then in order to calculate its closure, we have to convert this initial state into an input. Every input to the closure should be a set. Okay, and we're just going to put some symbol here. It's going to be a singleton set. Okay, so this will be the input to the closure. It's pretty much like, if you remember what we did before. Think about if I got some epsilon NFA, and then I actually got Q0, let's say. So what should I do? What I need to do is, if I want to calculate the corresponding DFA, I need to find out all the epsilon closure of Q0. That's exactly what we're doing. Okay? E close of Q0. Think about the closure here is similar to the E close that we did earlier. Okay? And let's do it. Okay? And it's an iterative algorithm, so you have to really keep doing it until you cannot make any progress. In this way, I can tell you we need 4 iterations. Okay? But once we get through the first one very carefully, others wouldn't be too bad. Okay? Let's now take a look. Okay, give you some look ahead. We got step number 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 iterations. Okay? But every step is going to follow similar hints just to help you out how to really instantiate the algorithm that we just spoke about. Right? I really try to keep it as organized as possible. And eventually, this will be the result we're going to get eventually. I'm going to show you the progress. We start with this particular item only. We only start with this. And then eventually we're going to expand the resulting closure by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 members into the set. And we're going to see exactly how to do that. Okay? And the convention will be, whenever you see gray, so that means that's the set we already got from the previous iteration. And initially, we just start with this. The green ones are the ones we're going to get newly in the current iteration, right? That's what you will see. Let's take a look. Okay? It's not too bad. Okay, we'll start with this. I just named that as 0. Okay? So this will be the initial parser state. We'll start with that. Right? You can see this one here corresponds to this over here. What we have to do is we got to do some pattern matching. Remember this one here? That's why I put it over here. You want to match what A is, what beta is, what C is, what delta is, and what A is. That'll make it just so much simpler for later calculation. I'll let you guys stare at between this one here and this one here, and tell me what A, beta, C, delta, A are individually. Let's go step by step. Okay? Okay? Varden, what's A? If you try to match. Can you see what A is? Well, this is the produced sign, right? A is whatever that goes to the left of the arrow. So what will be A in this case? The goal. Yeah, as simple as that. Don't hesitate. It's easy, right? It's not difficult. All right, that's the goal. All right, the next one. Jifen, do you mind? Beta. Beta, I'll give you a little bit of hints. Beta here should be whatever that goes between the arrow and the bullet point. Epsilon, absolutely. Nothing here at the moment. Yes, absolutely. All right. Hopefully you guys got into it. And What about C? Jordan, what's C? Absolutely. C is the first component that goes after the bullet point, right? So guys, it's really important for you to match that. So that's why I'm trying to pointing you guys out, make sure you're fine, right? So C here will just be the list. Okay? Two more. UU. What's delta? Delta is whatever that's between the first components and the comma. Empty. Yeah, the first component C is already, we know, is a list. And what's between the list and the comma? Nothing. Epsilon, right? Absolutely. Epsilon. And finally, I can do this. This one is too simple. A will be just EOF. Are you guys okay? If you got anything like this in the exam, I would suggest do the step first. That will just make it much clearer for you why you should really compute. So what we just did was just to match this line over here. All right? And if if your current set contains multiple rules, in that case, you have to match multiple times. But we only choose one at a time for each iteration. Okay? For now, we have no choice. This is the only one that's in the set. All right? And hint number 2, we have to go on to the second for loop. Given that the C here, let's see where C is. C is the list over here, right? So that means we want to find out all the production rule related to C. That's what we got to do, right? So you can see production rule corresponding to C, corresponding to list will be this one here and this one here. So we got 2. So that means we need 2 additional items for this iteration, 2. All right? Keep that in mind, and I'm going to write it down. So there are 2. So one will be the list produces the list followed by pair, and also the list produces pair. Okay? You got 1 here. Oh, you know what? Just got 1 here, and also you got 1 here. 2. Final one, we want to somehow calculate the first of delta A, which will give us the range of the look ahead symbol for the new item. Okay? Let's be very careful here. We know delta here is epsilon, right? So it's going to be the first of epsilon, right, which is delta, and also A, which is EOF, which will be just the first of EOF, which will be just EOF. Are you guys okay? Right? We'll see some different calculation next in the later iteration. Now we got everything you need. All we gotta do now is to put the combination between this row over here and the B over here. Okay? For the first one, I'm gonna do it together with you. I'm gonna do it, and then for the later one, I'm gonna point to somebody to help. Okay? So just really push you to get as much as possible just from today. Okay, so we will have 2 new LR1 items. Number 1 is going to be based on this. So it's going to be the list produces, right? You can see we should put the bullet point in the beginning. So which will be here or in the beginning here, right? So you're going to be bullet points, and then the list, and then pair, and the only choice of the look ahead symbol B is just EOF. So we just put EOF over here. That's the first one. Okay? And what about second one? So let's go for this one here. So it's going to be the list produces bullet point and then pair. And then EOF. Mechanically, make sure you're okay. I'll give you a little bit of explanation about intuition, why we're doing this. Okay? You can think about this. When you are first trying to match strings acceptable by this particular grammar, the grammar is going to accept things like maybe parentheses, or maybe nested parentheses, or a list of nested parentheses like that. So we are saying that, what can you expect in the beginning? After the current calculation, we got either this or this or this. That's what we have calculated. You can be just in the beginning of some list. You can be in the beginning of some pair. You can also be in the beginning of some list followed by pair. So these are all the possible inputs you may face ultimately. If you only got this one to start with, that's not enough. It cannot really accommodate for all the possibilities for the input. That's why we have to calculate the closure. Okay, that's the intuition. Guys, any question? The rest before the break will be to do this 3 more times. Okay, let's see. And there's one more thing I want to mention, but let me move on to the next page. Okay, and what can you expect in the next page? So once we are done with the first iteration, you can think about the closure set S in the algorithm now contains not just the initial one we start with, but also 2 additional items. That's how we're going to start with. Okay, let's now do that. That will be the start for iteration 2. So that's the initial one. So these were the 2 additional ones we added in the previous iteration. Right? Now, in the actual exam, you have a choice. You can either try to do the pattern matching, especially this guy here. You can either try to match this one to number 1, or you can match this one to number 2. The order doesn't really matter. Ultimately, you're going to reach that fixed point anyway, so the order doesn't quite matter. For now, I'm just choosing the order that's easier for me to present. Okay? Now, let's say we choose this one to match. Okay, similar exercise. Okay? And to save time, I'm going to call a single person to tell me if we choose this one here to match, what will be the corresponding A, beta, C, delta A? Well, somebody would like to volunteer. Robbie, good. Just before you do that, let me just get ready. We want to find out what A is, what beta is, what C is, what delta is, and what A is. Robbie, what's A? Will be a list. I agree. What about beta? Epsilon, absolutely. Because nothing before the bullet point. Very good. What about C? Pair, I also agree. What about delta? Epsilon, absolutely. What about, look ahead? NO5, EOF, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, this one is also easy. We'll see a little bit different pattern matching the next iteration or so. Okay? And now, what rules should we find? We should find what C is. You can see C is actually the pair. So that means we should really find out all the production rule related to C, the pair. So now we got this one here. Okay, let me write it down. And since we got 2 alternatives, we got 2 more additional items to add, right? Let's see. So this will be, let me put it here. It will be pair produces pair this. And also pair produces this. So these are the 2. Okay? And Matthew, would you like to try? What's delta A in this case, first of all? Let's start, what will be the concatenation of delta followed by A, given that what Robbie just said was actually right? Yeah, so epsilon, yeah, absolutely, thank you. Epsilon and end of file. And what do you think this would be in this case? What's the first of this? But remember, epsilon actually has no effects in the string concatenation. So this will be as if you say, yeah, very good. Yeah, this is what you will have to do in the exam. Better make sure you make some mistake now rather than later. So this will be just EOF. The same as before. Okay? So we got all the hints we need to know. And then how do we enumerate all the new items over here? Okay? Okay, so let me find someone. Colin, would you like to try? So we know that eventually we need 2 new items to be expanded into S. And given all these we have, do you think you know which 2 precisely we need to add? If you want to skip, you can skip. That's okay. Okay, sure. So there's going to be 2 items. Let me put them first. How about the first one? Yes, go ahead. What will be the production rule, the first part? Absolutely. First of all, just make sure you guys know. So in the beginning, right, and that's a production rule. We're just adding bullet point here. And that's corresponding to exactly this. Okay. What about the A, the look ahead? Sorry, the B here. In a file, absolutely. What about the second one? Dot, bracket, and then and a file. Yes, easy. Okay. We will see something a little bit different in the next iteration. But second one, we also know how to do it. So that's why when you see the notes, you will see that these were the 3 we got from the previous iteration. And in this current iteration, we just added these 2. And knowing what's going to be ultimately the size of this exact closure, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 more to go. Of course, in the exam, don't get me wrong. In the exam, you don't really get this one as a hint. You don't really get it. Otherwise, what's the point of calculating? You just copy that, right? I'll make sure I don't give that to you in the exam. Okay. All right, good. Third iteration. Okay. Now for the third iteration, so we actually got these were. Okay, let me recap. This is how we started with. These 2 were from the first iteration. These 2 were from the second iteration. Okay, we're going to go for more. And now you have a choice. You have to choose from each one of them, or any one of them, to do the pattern matching. Okay, let's say I choose number 1. Why? It's just arbitrary. In the exam, you can choose in any order you like, as long as you can make some new addition. If you believe that out of all the choices you can make, you cannot really expand S anymore, that means you reach a fixed point. Then that's the point to stop and terminate. Okay? Let's say we find number 1. All right, so far I haven't asked any girls. Why don't we try? Okay? I'll let you girls work together and I just need the answer. Okay? Let's say we choose this rule over here. Okay? Hint number 1. What should we match? A, beta, C, delta, and A. Any one of you. A, beta, C, delta, and A. Of course, if you really don't want to answer, you can say pass, right? Monica, Qingyu, or A is list. I agree. Beta epsilon, because nothing in between. I agree. What about C? Now it's a little bit different, right? Don't think epsilon is always don't think delta is always epsilon. It's not, right? That's why I gotta finish everything. Okay? Think. What should be C and what should be delta? This might be a good time to just remind you. C will be the first components. Delta will be the remaining components. What's C? List. I agree. What's delta? Pair? Yeah. And what's A? In a file? Also. All right, that's good. Okay. And now that we know what C is simply just a list. So when we want to find out all the alternative, we should really go for the list. Again, we're back to this rule. So you may have to refer to the same rule multiple times. You may have to. All right. And first question right away. How many more additional items do we need for this iteration to add to S? 2, right? 1 based on here and 1 based on here. Actually, not necessarily, because it's going to be a combination of how many alternatives you have for C and also how many first you have for delta A. So not necessarily just the number of this, but we'll see. Okay, so here, what about first of delta A? Yes, so since you answered the previous one, why don't you represent them? What's delta A in this case? It's going to be the first of what's delta and what's A. Let's start with that. Delta is over here, which is pair, right? Okay, and what's A? And a file. Okay, very good. Now, this is slightly different from what we did before. This is slightly more complicated, right? Okay, now, how do we compute this? Of course, in the exam, you will need to have the knowledge about computing the extended first set, which we spoke about earlier. Make sure you review that. In this case, let me just do that intuitively with you, right? Anyone know the answer, first of all? What should that be? Should it be EOF? By the way, it would be EOF will only be there if pair itself is nullable, right? Is pair nullable? Is the first of pair nullable? No, it's not. Let me put a side condition here just to remind you. The epsilon is not a member of the first of pair. It's not. Okay, just remember that. So now what should be the first of pair? Japan, if you don't mind. Yeah, opening you meant. Not follow. Actually, even follow is not right. Okay, first. Okay, be careful. Yeah, good. That's all right. Okay, just this. Okay, just that. Okay, we are lucky. There are two alternatives over here and one first symbol here. So 2 times 1, just 2. Okay, good. So let's now write it down. Okay, for this one, I'm not going to trouble you. Let's do, let me just write it out. You can tell me if you don't agree. It's going to be, first of all, start this one here. List produces in the beginning, list, and then pair. And then there's only one possibility for B, which is closing parenthesis. And the second one will be the other alternative, which will be pair. So that will be the list produces in the beginning, pair, and then closing parenthesis. These are the two new ones, right? Again, so if you look at the notes, you will see these are the additional ones we have just made. We just added to the S. Okay, we got 2 more. All right. Why don't we, for completeness, let's finish that. Okay, gonna be quick. So far, we got how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 2 more. So in the exam, I might just give you another set to actually compute. And when should you stop? When you actually cannot make any progress. That's when you stop. Okay. Final step. Okay. So again, this is from the first. That's how we started with first iteration, second iteration, and third iteration. Let's say we choose number 6. Magically, once you compute this one here for the iteration here, we're going to reach a fixed point, and we don't have to go on anymore magically. Of course, you're going to decide that magical moment on the exam. Okay, let's now do this one. Okay, let's see who I haven't really consulted with so far. Nicholas, I'm pretty sure you're keen to be consulted. Okay. Okay, so let's say we do this one here. And again, A, beta, C, delta, and A, please. Absolutely. Opening parentheses, absolutely. And then, accordingly, we know that C is the pair. So we're going to match all the alternative for C, which is pair. Oh, sorry. You see, you got to be careful. Pair over here. Okay, good. And what's delta A? It's going to be the first of, what's delta A in this case? Let me write it down first. It's going to be epsilon, and then the, oh, sorry. What am I doing? Sorry, just got myself confused. This is capital A, little a here. Okay, good. And what is that? Yeah, no epsilon, right? Yeah, just make sure. Good, because that one has no effect on the concatenation. Okay? That'll be just that. Good. And I need someone to help us finish this example, and we can take a break. Okay? Qingyi, go ahead. Which 2? What should I write here? 2 additional LR1 items. Given what we have said about each hints, what should they be? Number 1 and number 2. I should cover these two, so you cannot see that. Sorry, say it again. The pair, okay. So I'm going to write it down, okay. So 2 here. Pair. Pair. Can you speak a little bit louder, please? Dot. And then open parenthesis. Okay, maybe Monica, you can help her. Opening bracket and. And what should be the look ahead symbol? Yes, absolutely. Exactly here. And second one, please. Dot. Absolutely, right? Yeah, guys, just be mechanical on this, but I already also mentioned about the intuition behind. And make sure you can do stuff like that, right? It's complete of the solution to this, all right? Let's take a break for 5 minutes, and then we got one more small algorithm to go through, and then we're done for today, all right? Take a 5 minutes break. And let's now talk about another very logical follow-up to the closure, okay? Think about what's happening here. Before the break, we talk about, let's say, if you can calculate the CC0, which is the initial subset state for the parser. And now we want to know what's going to be the corresponding states if we try to read some symbol, like a shift operation, right? That's what we want to do. And the algorithm that we need to look at is called goto. That's the algorithm. So for today, basically we learned about closure, we learned about goto. Next week, the last class, I'll make sure within 1 hour, I'm going to combine everything together so you'll see how to build the action and the goto table for the bottom-up parsing. And then we are done for the course, okay? Good. So this one here, don't worry, you can see only a few lines of code. Pretty easy, okay? I could have asked you guys just study by yourself. I'm pretty sure you can get it, but let's save some time. 10 minutes, okay? And the algorithm is going to be something like this. It's going to be a set of LR1 items. You can think about this one here should really represent the input or source subset state. Source subset states. And the output over here is just another subset state. That will be the target. So this will be the target subset states. And over here, we got some symbol X. So what does that mean? That means if you got the input over here, subset state, you got the output subset state, they are related to by X. As easy as that, okay? Let's see how we can compute it. And the way we're going to do that will be very similar to how you construct the transition table for DFA. Let me just remind you the steps. I think I mentioned that very briefly before the break. Let's say, how do I compute to say I go from the initial state by taking, let's say, D, some digits. I need to compute, okay, let me just remind you. Let's say this is the source. And how do I compute the target? And of course, this will be the symbol X, the input. So how do we relate them together? Let's remind you very quickly. So that means you have to somehow to do delta, the normal transition, from every member there. So that'll be Q0, and then take a digits. And also union with the delta of another member here, Q1, also taking D. And once you got this one here, you're going to take the closure. That's exactly what we're going to do for this. Okay, so let's look at the algorithm. And I need some help from you guys to help me interpret before I tell you. Okay, and I can help you here. We're going to have a set called moved. Okay, and then we're going to find all the item which has this particular pattern. And then we're going to extend the moved, meaning the target state, by this new item. So what I want you guys to do is to compare this one here, what we can match, and this one here, what we can add. Can you tell me how are they related, the green and the pink? And by the way, they're different. If you think they are the same, no. Look closely, especially where the bullet points are. You thought that they were the same? No, they're not the same. No. Okay, yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. Good. So now, how is the green related to the pink? That's the question. Can anybody try to put intuitive term? That's the essence for the algorithm. Once we know it, we're going to do one example and we're done. Okay. How are they related? Of course, watch out the difference, right? How the bullet point has been moved from one to another. For those of you who still are not convinced they are different, take a look here. Now you're convinced, right? I'm pretty sure. If you they switch, yes. Yeah. You know what? Actually, that's what happened to some of your classmates from the winter, right? They said, "Oh, are they really different?" I said, "Here." They said, "So what?" I said, "Oh yeah, they're different," right? Yeah. Anyway, that's. I think that person is doing well. He graduated, which is good. All right. Anybody want to try? Just intuition. Don't worry about being wrong. Jordan, I'm pretty sure you want to try. Let me help you a little bit. I can see where you're going. How about this? For the first one here, we have already read beta. We're expecting to read X. Haven't read it yet. How about pink? Oh, no, you're thinking too complicated. Way too complicated. Let William help you. Yes, go ahead, William. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, good. Let me put it down, just to, in case. So this one here, you can think about expecting to read X. Expecting to read X. And this part over here is you have already, X already recognized. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is, since you're trying to take some transition, we'll take a shift operation more specifically. So that means in the target state, from here to here, you have the only difference is you have read X, right? That's it. Okay, so let's now try to do one example. Right, sorry, I forgot some very important point. Once you have calculated the move over here, afterwards you have to calculate a closure. Just make sure any possible expansion will still be taken care of. Pretty much like the E-close over here. All right, that's why analogy is really important in this case. Let's try. Okay, so you will see on the excuse me. You will see on the slides the example you can do is this. You can definitely try, but I'm going to go over with you anyway. You're going to calculate the go-to. Okay, that's the algorithm. So we start with initial set, CC0. It can be any arbitrary I might give to you in the exam. And some symbol. Let the symbol be opening parenthesis, which means we want to shift by just reading the opening parenthesis. And what will be the corresponding target subset state? Okay, let's see. And let's look at the relevant information here. CC0 is what we calculated before the break. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 members there, right? That's a starting point. And that's the go-to algorithm we just did. And then this will be the final result, but let's not look at that just yet. Okay? How do we compute it? Let's be careful. First of all, can you guys stare at that input over there because you got to practice? How many items there can match this pattern here? The pattern goes very specific. After the bullet point, it must be a symbol. It cannot be a variable. So that means you are now at a state of the parser where you are expecting to read a single symbol, not a variable. Okay, let me just put it down. You guys can tell me exactly which ones are the ones to match. X over here must be a terminal. Okay, can you tell me how many will match this pattern here? How many? We can go one by one. Oh, really, you want to say how many? 4. Okay, remember that number. Okay. Would this match? No, because after the bullet point, it's a variable. No. Would this match? No, it's a variable. Would this match? Yes. So I'm going to highlight it in green. Okay, how about this one here? Does it match? No, because it's a variable, right? Would this match? Also no. Would this match? Yes, it's an opening parenthesis. Okay, and would this match? No. Would this match? Yes. Good. You guys tend to agree. Thank you. And what about the final one? Would this match? Also yes. Absolutely. So before we get to the closure phase, we'll do that at the end. We want to basically shift the bullet point for each one of them. Okay, let's now do that. Okay. Let me be very precise for you. So here we got 4. So let me write it down here. So pair produces this. Pair. That. And also we got, I'm going to do some copy and paste, but I just want to make sure it's complete to you when you study for that. And also the second one, EOF. And number 3, we got pair, bullet point, pair, EOF. And the fourth one will be just pair produces. Okay, these are the 4. And now I'm just going to do something that you guys cannot really do on the exam. Okay, first of all, like that. And then they will correspond to this part over here, right? Again, if you look at the difference, as William said before, X will now become to the left of the bullet point. Okay, let's now do that. I'm just going to paste it over here, and then I'm going to change its color just to blue. Right, you can see this color is matching this, right? Except I got to move the bullet point. Here, 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 and here. Okay, are we good? Okay, at least it's clear to you. Okay, that's the blue one. And what's more, we got to calculate closure. Basically, this will be the input for the closure. Okay, and we want to calculate the closure. And I missed something here. Okay, so for this one here, we want to calculate the closure. And if you try to recall briefly, in order to calculate the closure, we need some kind of like a variable, right? In order to get some additional items. So it turns out only these 2 can actually, these 2 will actually will be the additional items we have to add. Only if after the bullet point you actually got a variable, will you actually have to worry about having some additional items for the closure. So these are the only 2. Okay, I'm going to put down the insight for you. Basically, this one here, and also this one over here. Okay, these 2 will trigger additional items. Okay, and quick exercise for you. Okay, I want you to look at these 2. This one here and this one over here. Once you calculate the closure, you're actually going to get this one here and this one here. Okay, that'll be some exercise for you to think about. I will review this again on Tuesday. Okay, I'll put down an exercise and then I'll say something a little bit more and then we're done. Okay, so here, exercise. Okay, exercise. Y, the highlighted items trigger the 2 additional items. Right? You want to definitely, in order to answer this, basically relating these two to these two. To answer that, you want to go back to where we talked about before the break of this particular algorithm. Right? Something for you to think about. Right? That's the go-to algorithm which we did last time. Okay? And there's one example I want to do just to wrap up. It's more like a new example. And I just want to point out to you guys over here. When we talk about the go-to algorithm last time, over here, here is a symbol X, okay? So I kind of based the algorithm over here on some textbook. So here, when they say symbol, okay, as we will see later, don't be too restrictive. The symbol here, what I gave you the impression about last time was it's only just a terminal. However, terminal definitely works. It can also be a non-terminal, like a variable. So I want to do another example with you guys, just to make sure you understand both. So X over here can be either a terminal, and the example we did last time was just over here. Let me show to you. The example we did was just a opening parenthesis. That's one case. Another case, which I'm going to go over with you. Oh, there was a little typo here. Over here, that should be a list. Okay. Another possibility would be it could be also a non-terminal, like a variable. When you eventually build the transition table for the parser, for the go-to table, for the action table, it's actually going to take either a terminal or a variable, right? That's something you will see, all right? So later on, when you review this example here, I'm going to go a little bit quickly because that's something we did last time, but I'll definitely highlight to you what you should really watch out for. Let's look at the question first. You want to calculate the following input on the go-to. We have some starting LR1 item set, which is this one here. And remember, this is CC0 is what we calculated last time by using closure, right? Just make sure you review that. So this will be the starting input, and then it is reading, rather than just a terminal, it's now reading a variable. This is what it is saying. If currently I'm now in the set, the subset states, CC0, and then somehow for parsing, I can read the whole list like a variable, maybe by reduction. In that way, where should I go to in the next stage? That's what it is calculating. So this transition over here in the context of bottom-up parsing, this can be a variable or it can be a symbol, like an opening parenthesis, like what we said last time. All right? And that's the problem we have. All right? We want to calculate this. And the procedure that we're going to follow will be just the same as last time. So let me do a little bit more quickly, just to show you what you really watch out for. Okay, number one, we want to look at the input set over here. And since we are trying to read the list, so that means we want to find out the X. So this X over here is going to be replaced by just the list. Over here, the X will be replaced by just the list. We want to find out every item in the input set where the bullet point occurs just before the list. And then we're going to create some new item where we're going to shift the list right after. Okay, sorry, let me say it again. The input there, we're going to find out all the bullet points that appear before the list, meaning that we haven't recognized that yet. And we're going to create some new item over there by putting the bullet point after the list, indicating we have already recognized it. Okay, that'll be the procedure. Let's do this one first. That one's easy. Right, let's look at the input over here. Okay, guys, quick exercise for you on your eyes, right? How many items can you identify for this part here, where the bullet point goes right before the list? How many? Just tell me how many. 3. Okay, William told us 3. Hopefully you guys agree. Very good. Okay, it's exactly 1 here. Oh, sorry, too thick. 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So these 3 input items will definitely trigger some additional items. Level 1. they are going to trigger the following 3, which I'm going to highlight in the output. So CC1 over here is the output that we're going to generate eventually by this goto. This will be 1, and this will be 1, and this will be 1. Okay, let's see the one-to-one correspondence. You can see here, for this item here, they are green. The additional item here, they are in the blue, right? So let's take a look. Let's say this one, for example, you can see the bullet point is before the list. And for this one here, the bullet point is after the list, right? You can see the correspondence over here. And similarly, for this one here, bullet point before the list. For this one here, bullet point after the list, and etc. So these are the 3 additional items. Are we okay with this step over here? This step here is pretty straightforward, right? Okay, and then that's the only 3. But we have to make sure after we have calculated the moved, so the moved over here after upon this point, we only got 1, 2, and 3 items. But we need to calculate its closure, all right? The closure part, okay? Let me give you guys some little hints. You can think about after calculating the closure, we're going to get 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 additional items, okay? But let's see a little bit more closely why. So this might be a nice review about how to calculate closure. So for example, so what we want to do is we want to calculate the closure of the set containing this one here. The goal produces the list, bullet point, EOF, and also this one here. It would be the list produces the list pair, and then EOF. Okay, there's a comma here that's missing. And the third one is over here. It would be the list produces the list, bullet point, pair, this, and opening parenthesis, right? We got 1, 2, and 3. And we want to calculate about their closure, right? Just to be a little bit more consistent with the color, I'm going to turn them into blue. Right? You can see these ones are passed to the closure. Now, what will be the closure? Well, I'm going to let you study the algorithm more closely. I'm pretty sure you do that for the exam. Basically, you have to look to see what can go after the bullet point. Okay? So, just notice that there's a comma here. Okay? You can see after the bullet point over here, before the comma, there's epsilon over here for the first case. For the second case, you got a pair, right? Between the bullet point and the comma. Here, between the bullet point and the comma, you also got pair, right? So that means we have to look into the rules for pair, okay? And what are the rules for pair? You can see we got over here, the rules for pair will be this one here and this one here. So that means we need to, this will be dimension number 1. So dimension number 1, we got 2 alternative for pair. So we got pair produces pair, and also we got pair produces this, right? That's the first dimension. And what's the second dimension? For the second dimension, we have to worry about the first of the delta A. That's from the algorithm, all right? In this case, I'll let you calculate it in detail. But in this case, what would they be? Well, take a look. Let's say in this case, we got pair over here, we got pair over here. One is followed by EOF. You can see one is followed by EOF, the other one is followed by this. So these are the 2 you're going to collect. Okay? I'll let you study that algorithm more closely. So that's why eventually what you will get is you're going to get, for example, this one here is corresponding to this. The bullet point appear right in the beginning. And then you got EOF. You got another alternative, which will be the bullet points still appear before that, but you got opening parentheses. Right? These are the 2. And then for these 2 over here is corresponding to this particular alternative. Bullet point in the beginning. And what about the look ahead symbol? Either opening parentheses or EOF. Okay? So dimension number 2 is something you can easily calculate using the steps that we talked about last time. So that will be the first of delta A. Right? So this is something you can also see. All right, guys, I'm deliberately omitting some details over here because that's something you have to do the pattern matching like last time and then calculate it. Okay? Are we okay about this? So this first example here, number one, it reviews about how we can calculate the go-to. And also number two, it tells you that whenever you're trying to use the go-to over here, the input can either be a terminal, which we did last time, or it could be a variable, like what we just did, either way. Okay, so this will be very useful for calculating the transition table in just a moment. Okay. Any question about this example here? All right. All right, very good. Let's now move on quickly. And we got two more small algorithms, but both of them are straightforward, okay, to actually go over. So if you go back to the slides after the go-to, so the first algorithm to go to is to build the canonical collection over here, okay? Let's now go over the algorithm line by line, and then we wouldn't need to trace this one in detail. I'll just show you what the outputs are. I'll suggest some exercises for you. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, this one. The input is going to be some grammar. And there will be some Go production. You can think about the S over here is simply just the start variable, typically. Okay, so this will be the start variable. If the grammar is actually, let's say this is the example grammar, so this will be the Go production. Right? Because Go produces lists. Eventually you want to get a list. And then the output will be two things. Okay, we're going to look at the output in just a moment. We're going to calculate all the reachable subset states, right? CC0, starting with that, see what are reachable from CC0 by using the various go-to. And then we also want to, at the same time, build some transition function, and we'll see how that will look like. Okay, let's now take a look. Okay, CC0 is exactly how we calculate it. You can think about the start variable over here, and then EOF, right? That's what we did before. I think there could be some typo over here I should fix. Okay, I think this is S, this is S prime. Okay, I'm going to fix that also on your slides. So that will be the closure of the initial states of the parser, and then we start with the CC just being CC0. We're going to keep growing this set until we have nothing that allow us to grow. Okay, let's see how to do that. The way to do that is, for every iteration, you're actually going to look for the bullet points. So look for, so this means we are ready to recognize a terminal or variable. And we just use the variable or terminal, just use X. That's a symbol. So the X over here is not necessarily just a terminal. It could be a variable as well. So we just want to find out in the CC set so far, and then we want to find out all the items where we can simply just ready to recognize another thing. Okay. Once we find that, we can just say, we can just go to that particular set. Okay. So this is to say, let me just take a look at this. So this here is to say, make a transition from CCI, which is the current set, via recognizing X. So let me just visualize that a little bit. You can think about if the current set is actually CCI, and we want to know what the target state is if we try to take a transition by recognizing X. And X can either be a variable or it can be a terminal. That's basically what this is doing. We'll keep doing this and then keep growing the CC set until we cannot go any further. Okay? And then at the same time, we can also update the transition function. The transition function basically is going to be a source, some symbol, and target. Okay? We'll show you the example right away. Okay? You can think about this as a source states. And this one over here is the target states. And this one over here is the transition that we can take. So this algorithm over here, we can actually get two outputs. One is all the reachable sets in a canonical collection. Number two is the transition function. Okay? And we don't really have to execute this algorithm entirely. Too tedious. We don't need to. However, what can I ask you in the exam? What I can ask you about is, I might give you a particular, let's say, item over here. And I would say, given this item here, how can you calculate the corresponding, for example, this? And what can be the corresponding entry that we have to add into the transition function, and etc. I wouldn't ask you to really show the tracing for the entire algorithm. I'll just ask you to show some steps. Okay? All right, let's now take a look at the output very quickly. Output number one. For this particular grammar over here, this grammar here, so these are all the canonical items over here. Right? We showed you very briefly last time. Right? So far we have seen three already. This is CC0, the initial one. Okay, we knew how to calculate it from last time. CC1 is by taking a transition. CC1 is by taking a transition of the list variable. And CC3 is what we calculated last time by taking the transition of opening parentheses, okay, using goto. And for others, right, just by different transition, okay, to be more visual. This will be the corresponding transition diagram. How do we read it? So let's say this. Initially, we are in CC0, subset states. By taking the list, we can go to CC1, which we just calculated today, right in the beginning. And also, you can, starting from CC0, you can also go to, you can go to CC3 if you take this. That's what we did last Wednesday. So far, these two have been covered. In the exam, I can say, I'll give you one state over here, and then I can potentially give you another state and ask you, how is these two states related? That's one way to ask. Or I'll give you this and say, taking this transition here, what will be the corresponding subset states? You just need to show me the computation. Okay? And just one more thing. There's another way to visualize this, this diagram, which we definitely talked about back in the DFA lecture. So I'll just show you one row. Let's say the starting state is CC0. By taking, for example, the list variable, the corresponding target state should be CC1. How can you see that? So CC0 over here, starting from that, taking the list over here, and you get to CC1. That's how you look it up. And if you say in CC0, you take the goal, undefined. Okay? So it's not defined. So that's why you simply put empty set. Because every entry there is a subset states. If that's undefined, just empty set. Guys, are we okay so far? You can think about the go-to there is really how we built the transition gradually. Eventually, that's what we will get. And you might just be asked about how a particular entry should be calculated in the exam. That's what you might be asked. Okay? Any question about this? Okay, that's the first algorithm. And there is a final algorithm that we have to go over, the final one. And if you look at this table here, okay, this table is actually what we actually assumed about maybe 3 or 4 lectures ago. Let me remind you very quickly, if I can find it very quickly. Maybe about, right here. Okay. If you remember the tracing we did about bottom-up parsing, right? I said, let's assume there's such a table. And after that tracing, we actually have been talking about, LR1 item, canonical collection, etc. Now we should know how to build this table from scratch so that the bottom-up parsing algorithm will really work. So it's exactly over here, bottom-up parsing. Okay? Let's now go back. Okay, let's now go back over here. Let's take a look. And the each line here actually is very logical. Let's look at the input and output quickly. Input would be a grammar, for sure. And also a goal production, the star variable 2 produces whatever it is expecting. And also we're assuming that these two are already available to us. Okay, so I'll make a note over here for you. These two are presumably calculated by Bill CC that we just went over here. Okay, produced by build the canonical collection. Okay, and what will be the output? The output will be action table and go to table, and this will be the output right over here. Okay, right over here. To be honest with you, after we have got this particular transition function, filling up this table here is very easy, very straightforward. Let's just go over some quick example, and then you will see the point. We're just going to run some loop, and then we have to know when to do fill in the shift, when to fill in the reduce, and when to fill in the accept, and etc. Okay? Let's take a look at 3 examples. Okay? Example number 1. How do we fill in the shift action over here? So this is to say, let's say this. You have, okay, whenever for you need to fill in the shift operation over here, there should be a corresponding transition going from CCI to CCJ. I and J here are the state number. For example, you can see here, we actually got, let's see here, this one here, and this one here. Okay, so if we are now in CC3, by taking this, we will actually go to CC6, right? If you look at that. That one there is like a delta of CC3 by taking opening parenthesis is going to give us CC6. So now if you look at the 3 and 6 over here. So that means correspondingly you have to fill in the action table, right? So here should be 3, and here should be 6. That's exactly what you will see here, 3 and shift 6. All right? Of course, you should really look at it more closely. I'm just trying to highlight right away to you how you can fill it in. Don't lose the big picture. What we're given is this particular transition function, given that we will be able to fill in the entries in the table one by one. Okay? Let's look at another one about reduce. Very similar. For the reduce, you can look at the condition here. Whenever we got some item where you can see the bullet point is already at the end of the production rule. That means we are ready to read the look ahead symbol and then reduce. Okay? And one example would be, let's look at this one here. Let's say here and here. Okay? So if you look at CC8, this one over here is already the accepting states, CC8. So here, that means we don't have to read anything over here. So let me just fill it in for you. So if you look at the CC8, CC8 is already an accepting states, meaning reading EOF will reduce. All right? Okay, that's the second one to see. Okay? Are we okay so far? Okay. So this one here, let me see. I think these are the examples I want to go over with you. Just make sure, you have to make sure, if I give you this transition function here, and then I may ask you, based on this transition function, how can you fill in some particular entry in the table? That's something you will have to make sure you know how to do. Okay? Are we okay with this? Or you want to maybe take some time to look at this before Thursday? We can definitely revisit this. So here I'm just highlighting what you should really watch out for when you study the algorithm. Okay? Maybe take a look at this. If you do have questions here, we can revisit again. But you definitely need to take some time. But the critical thing is you want to really match the pattern over here. If you match the first one, you're going to fill in some entry for the shift. If you match the second one, you're going to fill in entry for reduce. If you match the third one, you're going to fill in for accept, for example, like over here. Okay? And this part over here is just for filling in the go-to table. Okay? But it's also based on the delta function as well. For example, you can see from CC6, by taking pair, we're going to CC9, exactly over here. Okay? Similar. Okay? Let me make a note over here. So this part over here is for filled in the go-to table. Okay? So the final bits that we really have been talking about so far is just by using the go-to function and also the closure that actually we spoke about last time. And make sure you just know how to combine them together. The ultimate output is to produce this table over here and also this table over here. All right? Okay, any question about this? We okay? Okay, take some time to make sure you're okay with this. All right, so that's about this part over here. And if you look at the slides, there is another example. Oh, that's the algorithm that we just went through. Okay? And you will see that there is actually one more new grammar. So this is just another grammar here, and similar exercise as before. How do you calculate the CC? But I would suggest at least try CC0, right? By applying the steps that we talked about before. At least try CC0. And then you can calculate transition function. Try a few entries. And you actually see that this is the ultimate transition table. Again, you don't need to do the whole thing. What you need to do is maybe randomly pick some entries from there and try to do the corresponding calculation. Verify yourself. Okay? That would be my suggestion. Okay? Don't do the whole thing. You don't have the time to do it before Saturday. Right? So this is all the CC that you can definitely compare your answer against. It turns out it has larger parser states. CC0 all the way out to CC13, so 14 states as opposed to what we had before. Okay? Just a different parser. All right? All right, the final slide and the final point to make is about what kind of ambiguity can you run into for the parser. Okay? And there are two kinds of ambiguity that we can talk about. I'll put them here. Okay? That'll be the final page to discuss. Okay? Now, I want you to take a look at this particular states. Think about this is certain states for the parser. Okay? Certain states of the parser. Okay? I'm going to describe to you based on our understanding. You guys can think about if there's anything that might go wrong or ambiguous with it and why. The bullet point, well, first of all, the set over here contains two possible items, right? One item here is saying as follows. We have already read this so far. If the next the look-ahead symbol is either this or this, if the next word to match will be either EOF or else, we will be able to reduce back to a statement. Okay, that's what this item is saying. What about this item here? This item is saying the following. We have already read this one so far. If the next one is going to match this one here, we're going to move the bullet point to here by doing a shift. All right? Based on what I have just described, do you see any potential ambiguity? Since these two items are in the same states, right? Is it possible to say the input is something, but it can result in maybe two possible actions which cannot be fulfilled simultaneously? Is it possible? Anyone? So here, by reading EOF or else, right? Either this or this. We can reduce to the statement. That's the first one. All right? We agree with that. That's by the very definition. What about this one over here? This one is by reading else. Here we don't really look at the lookahead symbol just yet. We only look at the lookahead symbol if we are at the end of the production, okay, the recognition. By reading else, we shift to exactly over here, okay? The bullet point, right? Are these two actions consistent? Not really, right? One is about shift. The other one is about reduce. One is to say, I can shift the bullet point to here. The other one is to say, I want to reduce to the statement. There's a conflict, okay? So this is either shift or reduce to the statements. So this is the so-called shift-reduce conflict. And I'm not too sure if you guys encounter that when you actually design your grammar in Antler 4. Some ambiguity actually belong to this category, okay? And one thing to say, what should be done in practice? In practice, having the shift-reduce conflict is not really fatal, meaning that you don't necessarily have to fix your grammar. The compiler or the parser generator like Antler 4, they normally take the shift as default action by resolving the ambiguity for you. Okay? But you should know that theoretically it's an ambiguity. But in practice, the parser generator might just generate a parser in a way it's going to do the shift. Okay? That's some aside for you to know. In practice, the shift will be done. Okay? But in theory, it's an ambiguity. All right? That's the first one. Okay? Shift-reduce conflict. What about the second one? Second one is a bit symbolic. Let's say we got another parser state, state number I. And then we got these two items. Okay? And somehow, these two items tells us we have already read these two. Okay? So this is to say, these two over here, gamma delta, already recognized. And this is to say, and also they share the common look ahead over here. And this one is to say, by reading A, some reduction should happen. Right? Both of them is telling you, after reading this, if I read another A, I should really reduce to this symbol. For this one, after reading the same thing, I'm now here. By reading another A, I should really reduce to this. Now, are we in a conflict? We are, obviously, because these two variables are different. What if one asks you to reduce to an expression? The other one asks you to reduce to the statement. So that's also a conflict. Okay? And this is the so-called reduce-reduce conflict. And unlike the shift-reduce conflict, in which case, in practice, the parser generator can help you resolve it by choosing the shift. But for the reduce-reduce, it is fatal. That means the parser wouldn't know which one you really meant to reduce into, either A or B. So in this case, if you got reduce-reduce conflict, you must make a choice or by redesigning the grammar. Okay? This one here, that means you must fix the grammar. All right? All right, so these are the two very common ambiguities you might run into if you try to use some parser generator, and then your grammar may contain some ambiguity, either shift-reduce or reduce-reduce. All right. Guys, that's it. All right, about everything.